Salam Malaysia Madani and good afternoon. You're watching Updates at Noon with me, Renee Fong. And making the headlines today, government needs to examine rural area development programs. Malaysia, Indonesia to counter EU criticism on palm oil. The government needs to examine the effectiveness of all the rural development programs being implemented to ensure they were relevant and met the needs of the current target group. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said this is because the population ratio in rural areas had decreased from 70% in the 1960s to 30% today. Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid, who is also the Minister of Rural and Regional Development, said relocations and urbanisation have made the residents' social status evolved through education. As such, he said those who are in the suburbs and rural areas should be dealt with and engaged because they need, among others, communications, infrastructure and technical education and vocational training, TVET. He noted that all programs must be relevant to the tastes of the target group. Speaking during the Ruang Bicara program produced by Bernama TV, Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid also touched on the importance of coordination among the various ministries that implement TVET programs to avoid duplication and ensure cost effectiveness. He said that there are now 11 ministries implementing TVET programs with the same goal, leading to duplication or overlaps in the programs offered. Malaysia will continue to collaborate with Indonesia to counter the European Union's criticism against palm oil. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof said Malaysia and Indonesia will talk about the laws which banned the sale of palm oil and other commodities linked to deforestation. Datuk Seri Fadilah, who is also Plantation and Commodities Minister, said the collaboration strategy with Indonesia to counter the anti-palm oil campaign is seen to be able to put pressure on the EU.
Jadi majlis negara-negara pengeluar minyak sawit ataupun CPOPC juga akan merancang strategi untuk memberi tekanan pada EU supaya Malaysia dan Indonesia tidak dibuli sewenang-wenangnya. Sama bersetuju bahawa negara-negara penuai minyak sawit perlu bersepakat dalam menangani isu-isu global supaya bantahan terhadap diskriminasi minyak sawit dapat dibuat secara bersepadu, efektif dan mantap.
He said that while this is not an easy task, the ministry and its agencies will boost efforts to counter the anti-palm oil campaign by reporting unassailable facts about the sustainability and benefits of palm oil. He said the related countries need to show the fact that palm oil does not harm the environment, causing negative impacts on humans and the wildlife. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Fadilah said the Malaysian palm oil industry is expected to continue its impressive performance this year, supported by strong demand and higher crude palm oil CPO production. He said palm oil exports are expected to increase by 3.7% to 16.3 million tonnes in 2023 from 15.72 million tonnes last year, driven by continuous demand from importing countries such as the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Bangladesh and Egypt.
Peningkatan kawasan tanaman sawit matang terutama di Semenanjung dan Sarawak serta keadaan cuaca yang baik merupakan faktor yang mendorong kepada peningkatan pengeluaran minyak sawit mentah pada tahun 2023 bagi terus mendorong perkembangan positif ini. Pihak kementerian juga akan memastikan proses kemasukan pekerja asing berjalan lancar dalam usaha menangani masalah kekurangan tenaga kerja di sektor perdagangan.
The government cannot fight climate change on its own as it requires the buy-in from all sectors, including the public and private sectors at the sub-national level. Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Minister Nik Ahmad said there is no government in the world that can fight the phenomena alone.
Sebab tu saya katakan whole of village approach. Sebab itu peranan kerajaan memastikan korporat-korporat besar termasuk pencemar-pencemar ini memainkan peranan mereka adalah sangat penting.
Explaining further, Nik Nazmi said one of the efforts to fight climate change is the Pulau Pinang Nature-Based Climate Adaptation Program. It is a nature adaptation program for the urban areas of Pulau Pinang that addresses the issues of heat, stress and flooding while strengthening social resilience and institutional capacity. The program includes engagements with stakeholders from civil society and vulnerable groups to achieve its goals that will benefit all levels of society in the state. Nik Nazmi hoped that the program could serve as a model for Malaysian urban areas across the country in fighting climate change. This year's investiture ceremony of Federal Territory Awards, decorations and medals in conjunction with Federal Territory Day will be the last to be graced by Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah, who was sworn in as the 16th Yang di-Pertuan Agong on 31st January 2019. His Majesty said this during the ceremony at the Istana Negara today.
Baginda Raja Permaisuri Agong berangkat ke Balai Rung Sri diiringi oleh pegawai berangkat masuk ke Balai Rung Sri.
Al-Sultan Abdullah, who was then the Sultan of Pahang, took the oath of office as Yang di-Pertuan Agong after he was elected by the Malay rulers at the 251st special meeting of the Conference of Rulers at Istana Negara on 24th January 2019 to reign for a 5-year term. At today's ceremony, Al-Sultan Abdullah said the fond memories of his reign in the metropolitan city will always be cherished by him and the Raja Permaisuri Agong. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong added that the virtues of tolerance and friendliness were still firmly upheld, while diversity has remained a strength despite the hustle and bustle of city life. As such, His Majesty urged the people to make these noble values the basis in strengthening and making Malaysia a developed and respected nation. Sultan Abdullah also advised the people to stop all disputes, avoid controversies and a climate of hostility because unity is the key to Malaysia's bright future. Still to come, Perodua to spend over R1 billion for business expansion. Stay tuned. There was a 41% increase in the number of road accidents recorded during this year's Chinese New Year Selamat 19 compared to last year. Deputy Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein said a total of 15,999 cases were reported this time compared to 11,325 cases in 2022, which is an increase of 4,674 cases.
Jumlah kematian juga menunjukkan peningkatan, iaitu sejumlah 134 kes melibatkan pertambahan 15 kes ataupun 13% berbanding operasi sama tahun lalu sebanyak 119 kes. Penunggang dan juga pemuncing motosikal masih kekal sebagai golongan yang mencatatkan angka korban tertinggi, iaitu 18 kematian daripada jumlah keseluruhan kematian Selamat pada kali ini.
Tan Sri Razaruddin said Selamat 19 also showed that road users had begun to cultivate compliance with road rules and laws following a drop in the number of summons issued, with 160,365 given out compared to 308,726 in the same operation last year. He said there was also a drop in burglary cases under Selamat this time, with 296 cases reported compared to 326 last year, adding that police also carried out a total of 68,519 patrols. Perusahaan automobil kedua Sdn Berhad or Pro 2 has allocated RM1.15 billion in capital expenditure this year for business expansion and to improve group operations. President and Chief Executive Officer Datuk Sri Zainal Abidin Ahmad said Pro 2 is looking to advance in many business areas such as production, sales, purchasing, commitment and vehicle intake, among others. Commenting further on the matter, Datuk Sri Zainal also said that Pro 2 is looking to maximise its production to 330,000 vehicles and sales to 314,000 units this year, in line with outstanding orders carried forward from last year as well as continued demand for its vehicles. He said Pro 2 manufacturing and global manufacturing plants' annual production capacity is at 320,000 vehicles on a two-shift cycle, and he also added that the company could still increase volume by improving productivity and by instituting overtime. He also said that such production growth would be significant for the Malaysian automotive industry, and Pro 2 has earmarked RM10.0 billion to purchase parts from local suppliers to meet its 2023 targets. The CEO noted that the growth would be a combination of improved service time as well as increasing Pro 2's service base throughout the country. Nine children killed in Pakistan boat incident. That and more coming up in the foreign segment. "49 children died when their overloaded boat capsized in northwest Pakistan after divers spent 3 days dragging bodies from freezing waters. The boys aged between 7 and 14 were all students of a madrasah and had been taken for a day trip to the scenic Tanda Dam Lake on Sunday. The water of the dam was freezing due to cold weather that impeded the rescue mission, but yesterday the divers were able to dive deep to recover the remaining bodies. The bodies of a teacher and one skipper were also pulled from the water, bringing the death toll to 51. Police spokesperson Fazal Naim issued the new death toll after the end of the rescue mission. He said the boat was overloaded as its capacity was around 20 to 25 persons. He added that 5 people were rescued, including 4 students and 1 teacher. Tanda Dam Lake is about 5 kilometers away from the madrasah, an Islamic school that offers free religious education in Kohat in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Drownings are common in Pakistan when aged and overloaded vessels lose their stability and pitch passengers into the water. In July last year, at least 18 women drowned after an overloaded boat carrying about 100 members of the same family capsized during a marriage procession between 2 villages. A suicide blast at a mosque inside a Pakistan police headquarters was believed to be a targeted revenge attack as rescue efforts ended with the death toll standing at 100. Between 300 and 400 policemen had gathered for afternoon prayers at the compound's mosque on Monday in the provincial capital, Peshawar, when an entire wall and most of the roof were blown out, showering rubble on officers. On Tuesday evening, rescuers finally ended a marathon operation which saw them pry survivors and corpses out of the wreck of the mosque, rushing those who could be saved to hospitals. Police said a suicide bomber had entered the mosque as a guest carrying 10 to 12 kilograms of explosive material in bits and pieces. They added that a group that was on and off affiliated with the Pakistani Taliban could be behind the attack, targeting the police who are on the front line taking action against them. Authorities are investigating how a major security breach could happen in one of the most tightly controlled areas of the city, housing intelligence and counter-terrorism bureaus and next door to the regional secretariat. Provinces around the country announced they were on high alert after the blast, with checkpoints ramped up and extra security forces deployed. Protests against French President Emmanuel Macron's plan to reform the pension system gathered momentum yesterday, with more than 1.27 million people in the street, according to the Interior Ministry. The number of demonstrators increased slightly compared to a first round of protests on 19th January, putting pressure on the government, which is struggling to convince voters of the need for the changes. 2 more days of strikes and protests were announced for next week on Tuesday and Saturday. Macron's plan to raise the age of retirement from 62 to 64 is a flagship policy of his second term in office, which he defended as essential given forecasts for deficits in the coming years. Strikes crippled transport, schools and other public services around the country. The last comparable protests were in 2010, also against pension reform, which reached 1.23 million people at their peak, according to official figures, and 3.5 million according to unions. Despite the prospects of an increasingly bitter and costly standoff, Macron has shown no sign of stepping back over an issue that has put his credibility on the line only 9 months after his re-election. According to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development data, France currently has the lowest qualifying age for a state pension among major European economies. NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg and Japanese Premier Fumio Kishida pledged to strengthen ties, saying Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its growing military cooperation with China had created the most tense security environment since World War II. The comments came in a statement issued during Stoltenberg's trip to Japan following a visit to South Korea, in which he urged Seoul to increase military support to Ukraine and gave similar warnings about rising tension with China. It also raised concerns about Russia's nuclear threats, joint military drills between Russia and China near Japan, and North Korea's development of nuclear weapons.
We agree that transatlantic and Indo-Pacific security is deeply interconnected. What happens in this region matters to NATO, and what happens in Europe matters to you.
Responding to similar comments Stoltenberg made during his Seoul visit, China on Monday said it was a partner to countries, not a challenge, and that it did not threaten any nation's interests or security. China has previously criticized NATO's efforts to expand its alliances in Asia. Russia, which calls its invasion of Ukraine a special operation, has repeatedly cast NATO's expansion as a threat to its security. The United States is readying more than $2 billion worth of military aid for Ukraine that is expected to include longer-range rockets for the first time, as well as other munitions and weapons. The weapons aid is expected to be announced as soon as this week. It is also expected to include support equipment for Patriot air defense systems, precision-guided munitions, and Javelin anti-tank weapons. A U.S. official said a portion of the package, expected to be $1.725 billion, would come from a fund known as the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, which allows President Joe Biden's administration to get weapons from industry rather than from existing U.S. weapon stocks. The funds would go toward the purchase of a new weapon, the ground-launched small-diameter bomb made by Boeing Co., which have a range of 150 kilometers. The longer range of the glide bomb could allow Ukraine to hit targets that have been out of reach and help it continue pressing its counterattacks by disrupting Russia further behind its lines. The U.S. Department of Justice has opened an investigation into Tesla's driver assistance features. The filing comes amid an ongoing National Highway Traffic Safety Administration review of the electric car maker's autopilot system. The Securities and Exchange Commission filing said the company has received requests from the department for documents related to Tesla's autopilot and full self-driving features. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has regularly promised that a fully autonomous vehicle is just around the corner, but his cars still only feature driving assistance and not full autonomy that would allow drivers to look away from the road. The company did not say what exactly the requests were, but according to media reports, the department is looking into whether Tesla's claims about the reliability of its driver assistance systems could leave drivers with a false sense of security. This is not the first time Tesla's public marketing statements have come under regulatory scrutiny. On its website, Tesla says its autopilot and its full self-driving capability options require a fully attentive driver who has their hands on the wheel and is prepared to take over at any moment. But the National Transportation Safety Board in 2021 said that using the term full self-driving is misleading. Alec Baldwin was formally charged with involuntary manslaughter over the accidental shooting of a cinematographer on the set of a low-budget Western Rust in 2021. Baldwin was holding the Colt 45 during rehearsals for the film when it discharged, killing Helena Hutchins in October 2021. New Mexico First Judicial District Attorney Mary Carmack Altwiz had already announced earlier this month that there was sufficient evidence of the filed criminal charges against the veteran U.S. actor. The film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was responsible for the weapon, was also formally charged with the same crime. If convicted, they both face up to 18 months in jail and a $5,000 fine, but a firearm enhancement to the charge could take that sentence to 5 years. Former 30 rock star Baldwin has repeatedly said he was told by the crew that the gun was not loaded and that he did not pull the trigger. Baldwin's attorney, Luke Nikas, has vowed to beat the charge, which he called a terrible miscarriage of justice. New Mexico prosecutors will summon the accused to appear in court within a month of yesterday's filing. Next in sports, mighty Gunners beefed up squad with a new signing. Stay with us. Premier League leaders Arsenal have signed experienced Italian midfielder Jorginho from London rivals Chelsea on an 18-month contract. Financial details of the transfer were not disclosed, but British media reported the deal was worth £12 million. Arsenal, who are 5 points clear of champions Manchester City in the title race, needed midfield reinforcements, especially with Mohamed El-Neni ruled out with a knee injury, which the club said required surgery that will keep him sidelined for an extended period of time. Brazilian-born Jorginho will provide Arsenal with significant experience in their title charge, having won the Champions League with Chelsea and the 2020 European Championship with Italy. The 31-year-old has been a key player for Chelsea this season, featuring 25 times in all competitions. Jorginho also won the Europa League, 3 FA Cups and 2 League Cups in more than 200 appearances for Chelsea since joining them in July 2018 from Serie A side Napoli. Arsenal returned to league action on Saturday against 19th place Everton, who appointed Sean Dyche as manager on Monday in a bid to secure their top-flight survival. Meanwhile, Chelsea completed the signing of Benfica's Argentina midfielder Enzo Fernandez for a British record £106.8 million after a day of complex negotiations between the clubs. A statement from Benfica confirmed that a deal had been reached between the clubs over how Chelsea would pay the release fee for the 22-year-old who has signed an 8.5-year contract. Chelsea were still to confirm the deal, but according to Sky Sports, the paperwork had been submitted on time and before the transfer deadline at 2300 GMT on Tuesday. The fee eclipses the £100 million Manchester City paid Aston Villa for England midfielder Jack Grealish in 2021. Fernandes was instrumental in Argentina's World Cup campaign in Qatar, breaking into the starting lineup and playing every game, capping off the tournament by bagging the Young Player Award. Fernandes moved from Argentine side River Plate to Benfica only last year and has played 29 times in all competitions, scoring 4 goals and grabbing 7 assists. He is Chelsea's 8th recruit in the mid-season transfer window after the London club signed Mykhailo Modric, Benoit Badiashile, Noni Madueke, Andre Santos, David Fofana and Malo Gusto, while Joao Felix arrived on loan from Atletico Madrid. Tottenham Hotspur have signed Spanish right-back Pedro Porro from Portuguese side Sporting on loan until the end of the season, with an obligation to make the deal permanent in the summer. Financial details were not disclosed, but British media reported that Spurs paid around £40 million for the 23-year-old defender. Porro becomes the North London club's second signing of the January transfer window after they also brought in winger Arnaud Danjuma on loan from Villarreal. Haas became the first Formula One team to show off their new look for 2023 on Tuesday, with growing optimism for the season ahead and US-based MoneyGram now prominent as the title sponsor. The online reveal of digital renders showed the Ferrari-powered car in a freshened-up red, black and white colour scheme. The new car will run for the first time at Silverstone on 11th February before testing in Bahrain from 23rd to 25th February. The season then starts at the Sakir circuit on 5th March. Haas finished 8th out of the 10 teams in 2022 after occupying last place in 2021. They have a new driver pairing with Denmark's Kevin Magnussen staying, but German veteran Nico Hülkenberg replacing young compatriot Mick Schumacher. Magnussen provided a highlight of the team's 2022 season with a surprise pole position in the Brazilian Grand Prix. Champions Red Bull are next up, launching their RB19 car in New York this weekend. The team also have a US-based title sponsor in software giant Oracle. With that, we end today's updates at noon. In our top story, government needs to examine rural area development programs. Tune into news at 10, coming up at 10 p.m. on My Freeview, Saluran Berita RTM channel 123. And before we go, take a look at a large starling murmuration swooping across the British sky, creating shape-shifting clouds. Thank you for watching. I'm Renee Fong. Have a pleasant afternoon.